Hey yo, we are here, episode 3, the one and only, the one and only Unselfish Behavior Podcast. We got the one and only, we got the one and only MJ in the building right now. MJ, what it do? How you feeling?
I feel blessed.
Yeah.
I feel present.
Yeah.
Everything's in alignment.
Yeah. Centered, grounded, all that. All
yeah.
that. Man, you got a lot going. I don't even know where to start with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like between Push Experience, Support the Homies, the Lockout, which is brought to you by Push Experience, and then you have a marketplace event that you do, and then you just came out with the vegan book.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you big on like the nutrition, you big on like the vegan lifestyle, right? Talk to us a little bit about what inspired the book and what to expect in it and how we can find it.
I think, I've been practicing a vegan diet for going on over 2 years, and I just really experimented. And then, you know, a lot of the homies would hit me up asking for different recipes. I was doing like meal prep for a couple of people that I knew were like transitioning just to like help people. But cooking was always one of my passions, and I just felt like, okay, instead of cooking for y'all, I'm gonna just have you guys do it. And then I created the vegan ebook, and I really just consider it another passion project, because I think that instead of calling myself a creative, I'm just a creator.
Love it.
And it's one of the things that I wanted to do, so I just went ahead and did it. And I feel like practicing that lifestyle and then also creating like content where people can put their hands on it, and it's comprehensive,
right.
You know, it's nothing fancy. It can really impact people's households,
right.
And thus hopefully break generations or generational curses rather.
Facts. Yeah, for me, you know, I'm thinking about my little vegan journey I was on, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I'd be like it's one of those things for me. It's like this, okay? I know it's the right thing to do, huh? You understand what I'm saying? I've seen the results of doing it. But, you know, one slip up for me turns into 15, and then 15 turns into 30. So I think my mindset is like, man, like, how do I get over? Because I be so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people about this, like my boy Willis Ryder. Shout out to Willis Ryder, my man, Straight V. I'm not sure if you know Willis.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Willis Ryder be inspiring the hell out of me with the veganism. But one thing he told me was, don't be so hard on yourself. You know what I'm saying? When you fall or when you slip, like, it's okay. Just keep it pushing. Yeah, nigga, you ate a taco today. Nigga, like, keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the end of the world. And for me, I've always like associated it with like, if I'm doing something, I want to do it 100%. And I'm vegan. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
and
I say in the book, it's beyond just recipes.
Gotcha.
I talk about the mindset and that it isn't a trend, although it has become more popular.
Right.
But Black vegans have been around for a really long time. You know what I'm saying? And I wouldn't say I feel like it's right for me right now in my lifestyle, but I just feel like there's nothing wrong with living your life in moderation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, like if I travel or if I go someplace and I've never
try
tried something, I absolutely try it. I'm not going to restrict myself, but I know what my limits are, you know what I'm saying? And I know what serves me. But I tell people in the book, like, you can implement this into your lifestyle, or maybe you want to mix it up. I'm not like a vegan Nazi. I just feel like that's what works for me. And a lot of the changes that I was trying to make in my life and the things that I was trying to get over in terms of my healing, food was the number one thing that I felt like was going to help me most. And that really changed my overall lifestyle.
That's powerful though. Like, how do you feel? Talk a little bit about the idea of titles. Like, I'm really big on not even putting titles on stuff, because once you start saying you a vegan, or once you start saying, people like start to judge you a little bit in regards to like what you're supposed to be eating, or and even the self-judgment is actually the hardest and probably the most effective, just because once you put the title on yourself, you then set the expectation as to how you're supposed to eat and what you're supposed to snack on. And what, like I experienced that in being a vegan. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not eating no animal-based products, you know what I'm saying, in regards to flesh and dairy products. Okay, cool. But a nigga may want some hot Cheetos today. You know what I'm saying? Like,
bro, I ate hot Cheetos the other
talk
day.
to me. Talk
you know
to
what I'm
me then.
saying?
You know what I'm saying? Like, cause
I ate hot Cheetos the other day. I was like, bro, You know, I went
You want
inside
some
my
chips?
brother's snack closet.
That
You know,
part.
he'd be catching the munchies. So I was like, I'm eating hot Cheetos.
That part.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
there's no judgment in it. You know what
Not
I'm saying?
at all.
Like no judgment in it. Like so for me, it's super dope. Another thing that comes to mind when I think about you is you talked a little bit about it, your mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
You come off as somebody who's very clear in terms of what you want to
thank you.
experience in your life. You come off as a woman that don't settle for just mediocrity. And I think a lot of that comes with experience. You, in order to set a boundary for not dealing with mediocrity, you've had to have dealt with mediocrity before, right? Talk to me a little bit about the dating world in LA. I think, you know, for me, like I was telling you earlier, I just want to use this platform as inspiration for people and us sharing our stories and our truths, right? And people are going to be tuned into this looking for inspiration. Why? Because you MJ, you inspiring off the top.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? And so anybody I bring on here, I just want them to be able to have something relatable to the audience. So it's going to be people that's watching this that may be single, that may be like looking to feel a little bit more empowered as a woman. Talk to me a little bit about how important it is. It doesn't even have to be just in the dating world. How important is it to be able to set boundaries and to be able to say no, or to be able to know when to say yes? Like how important is that balance, right? And just being a woman that's clear in terms of what you want to experience.
I'm going to start with boundaries. So boundaries, I think that a lot of people aren't really tapped into what that can mean in terms of setting safety up for yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. And where my boundaries were, I was realizing that I was being stretched thin in terms of how I was being available to my family members. And with that being said, without setting boundaries, I was being ultimately like emotionally abused. You know what I'm saying? And not intentionally, not in them trying to be like evil spirited or anything like that, but pretty much being like a matriarch or being, you know, the rock of the family, and not allowing myself to break down and not allowing myself to remove like that strength mask. You know what I'm saying? Where I always had to be available for other people. And thus I realized that was happening in my relationships, where I wasn't allowing myself to be vulnerable. Right. You know what I'm saying? But boundaries definitely have to be in place to protect our space and to give us space to grow. And I think that in communities across the board, not even in Black communities, but in communities across the board, we don't say to our loved ones, I'm not cool with this, or I don't want to do this.
Facts.
And saying no is sometimes setting a boundary for yourself for how far you can go for somebody else.
Facts.
I talk about my relationship with my mother a lot. She raised me to be someone who was very independent and headstrong, but with those titles also meant that I had to grow up a little bit faster. So I didn't really have too much wiggle room, you know what I'm saying? So with her having those expectations, it's like it didn't really give me any room to like make the mistakes that I wanted to make. So I had to reestablish what that relationship looked like. And I think that with the labels, we get so caught up in, you know, either single or a relationship or dating and this, that, and the third. What about just living? You know what I'm saying? What about just living? You don't always have, just being. You don't, just because I'm not in a relationship doesn't mean that I'm lacking anything. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And I would say to the people out there who are quote unquote single, have fun with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Learn. This is the best time of our lives where we, like, the world is ours. You know what I'm saying? Whether you have children or not, you can create the experience that you want.
Agreed.
So if I say I want romance in my life, let me do things for myself that I will want a partner to do. You know what I'm saying? Rather than waiting for that person to do it, and then God puts that person in my life, they're not doing what I want them to do because now I don't know how to communicate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that was a lot, but I just feel like just in a nutshell, like, know what your boundaries are, know what your triggers are, because that is going to carry in all the relationships that you have.
I feel like what you said in regards to giving yourself what some people expect others to give them, that's the true definition for me of self-love. And I think that a lot of us,
self-love is self-preservation.
Self-preservation. And I tell exactly, agreed. And I feel like self-love to an extent is having the ability to be able to say no, right? And people don't understand that. I feel like when people talk about self-love, this is just from how I perceive it. I feel like people are so surface level in this generation. Everything is surface. Love is surface. Support is surface, right? Not understanding the depths that it takes to actually allow for that thing to be actually effective, right? So I'm talking about self-love, right? So for 3.5 years, I actually told myself for 3 years I want to be intentionally single, because 3 years ago I didn't love myself. I didn't like or have any confidence about anything about myself, any characteristic. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't feel like I had much to offer to anybody in a relationship. And one thing that I learned was that self-love is not just giving myself the physical, tangible shit, like taking myself to the movies or looking at myself in the mirror and saying I'm handsome. Self-love is giving myself the emotional support that I was so accustomed to receiving from other people, learning how to give that to myself, allowing myself to feel, right? Big for me. Big time. I grew up in a household to where my father did not allow us to be able to express ourselves, the boys that is. He didn't allow us to be able to show emotion, right? Without associating it with being gay or soft or this. My dad was just like that, you know what I'm saying, my whole life. Till this day, I've never given my dad a hug and told him I love him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not a receptive person like that. So for me, I grew up with this idea like, I got to keep everything inside. I gotta be restricted emotionally, and then obviously that starts to translate into your relationships, and that's exactly what was happening. Right. So like, I'm shutting out emotionally because I'm not used to being able to be myself and to be received when I do show emotion. So I'm used to my dad shutting the door on me and saying, "Yo, don't, like, that's not allowed here. That's not allowed here. That's not allowed here." So now I'm in a space to where it's like, I want to be able to express that freely and openly and just allow myself to be without thinking about, oh, I can't love this hard or I can't love this hard because somebody will take it as like I'm doing too much or whatever the case may be. And it's like, no, like that's me to my core. Like, I am love. You know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
so funny you say that, because that's actually how my mom was. My mom was very hard.
Speak on that.
My mom has, she had a very tough upbringing. She was the only child. So growing up, she was just, she showed her love in the way she provided for my brother and I. You know what I'm saying? Like, making sure, like, if we wanted the nice things, she would give us the nice things. She made sure we went to good schools, and we had a cool childhood. But in terms of her emotion, it was just very shut off, because I didn't learn till later that her mother was like that with her. So for such a long time, I was trying to dig so deep in what was going on with her instead of changing my own behavior and letting her change around me.
Got you.
So that was pretty much the hardest part, was digging into myself and my own healing. And then her catching wind of how I wanted to be treated.
Understood.
And that kind of goes back to boundaries and relationships, where you set the tone. It sounds cliche, but once I really started applying it, like, you set the tone and how you want to be treated, and then you just start living your life a certain way, right? It's almost like, you know, when you grow up in a certain neighborhood and you like a certain thing, and everybody's like, oh, there goes that weirdo, you know, this, that, and the third. But you keep operating in that. And then those people catch wind of, okay, that shit's actually kind of cool.
Gotcha.
Like, that's straight. You know what I'm saying?
It grows on them.
They start to operate in that same frequency. So I had to totally change how I wanted to be loved, how I wanted to be treated, how I wanted to be talked to. Sometimes that meant going to therapy. Sometimes that meant having difficult conversations or asking my mom questions that would make her feel uncomfortable. But I was comfortable. And once I started operating in that, then she came around, and then we started breaking down these walls to figure out, why were you like this when I was a kid? And then it turned into, well, my mom was like this when I was a kid.
So it's a
and then
cycle.
her mom was like this when she was a kid.
Continuing the cycle.
You know, so I think we get kind of hell-bent and like grabbing the guilt and putting it on our plate when we don't even realize the guilt doesn't belong to us. The trauma doesn't belong to us. The questions don't belong to us. The attitudes and eating habits don't belong to us. This is stuff that's been put on our plate, and we could wipe our plate clean and put something else on it.
How powerful is that? How important is it to, I hear a lot about traumas when I hear you speak. It's so key to me. I didn't realize how important it was for me to even address my childhood traumas. Okay, so what I mean by that is childhood traumas are usually something that you've experienced at a very early age, not even at a very early age, but at an early age, usually in your adolescent years or as a youth at some point, you learn to suppress and bury, and you leave that there, and you never address it. You never talk about that. How important is addressing childhood traumas before you get into a relationship? How important is that? Because I want to believe that it's extremely important. And I'm also want to believe that there are some things, some traumas that you can grow with others. You know what I'm saying? Some people need a community. Some things are so big, they don't even know how to address that by themselves. So like, where's the balance for people out there that's like maybe experiencing in a relationship? You know, in some areas they're growing together, but it's like, no, with this shit, you may have to deal with that on your own. Yeah. Like you spoke a little bit about therapy too. So if you kind of like tie in the therapy maybe and how that has been effective for you in addressing your childhood traumas and just how important is that in addressing those things before you try to create a
Well, I didn't realize that one thing had something to do with the other until I went into therapy where I'm going to say this, you know, not everybody's open to therapy. So for me, it was a little bit easier for me because I already had the interest and the educational background in it. So I was like more open to just talking about stuff like that. But I feel like you could start this way. If there's just a red flag going off and you know, internally, and you're like, something doesn't feel right, then you'd be surprised what people can peel away. You know what I'm saying? And what has to do with another thing. And it's like, for me, when I was like going in and saying, hey, I'm having this issue, my mom's getting on my nerves. And then it turned into, oh, well, you actually have a codependent relationship, you know, and this is where it started. So once I started putting the puzzle pieces together, the picture started becoming a lot clearer. Right. And I just feel like, you know, there are lots of things that we suppress, and now we're adults and we think that it's nothing wrong. That's just how we operate. That's just who we are. You know what I'm saying? And we're keeping it 100, blah, blah, blah. I feel like everybody wants to live authentically, but I think that a lot of us hold ourselves hostage to who we think people think we should be. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Being intentional is huge for me as well too. Like, so I feel like everybody obviously has an opinion. Everybody gonna have an opinion, whether good or bad, whether you live in a life to where you feel fulfilled or not. Everybody is gonna have an opinion. For me, I try my best to just focus on what it is I want to experience in my life, right? Yeah. And so for example, me walking in my purpose and me starting to make decisions, like I feel like I'm at a space, not even an age, like I'm in a chapter in my life right now to where it's like I'm going after every single thing I've ever wanted to experience, right? Without feeling the judgment of like, yo, what my mama gonna say or what my sister gonna say. Like, even all the way down to like dating. Like, I had this thing to where I would feel like I have to run my woman by my mom and my sister in order to move forward with you. And for me, that was like, I don't know where the hell that started from, but I'm like, I'm done with that. You know what I'm saying?
It started from them putting their shit onto you.
Their expectations in terms of what a relationship is supposed to be like onto me. Right, exactly. And that's what I experienced. And not just in that, but just in life, like having to feel like you have to run shit by your mom or run stuff by your dad.
Tell me about it.
It's like, nah, I'm writing this book. Like, nah, I'm going to travel and I'm going to perform. Nah, I'm going to do this. And it's tough for people. Like, I get it, because when you love somebody, especially a parent, you naturally, instinctively want to make them happy. You want to be able to show them, hey, mommy, look what I did. You know what I'm saying? But when they push you off and they're like, oh, that ain't shit. Like, my mom told me out her own mouth, and I love my mama. You know what I'm saying? You'll never get paid full time being a poet. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even take that personal when she told me that because I knew that you've never seen that happen.
Right.
So, of course, you're supposed to say that. I get it.
And then it's also someone once upon a time ago has told her something along those lines.
Yep.
So what she did was just jump into the matrix.
Regurgitated it.
You know, she just jumped into the matrix and handled her business and did what she thought she should do as a parent, which was provide. And one of the cycles that I'm currently trying to break is this idea of living in survival mode. You know what I'm saying? Like when you have a certain upbringing, whether you are living comfortable or you lived in a hood and living comfortable, whatever the situation is, whatever your struggle looks like on the spectrum, I think that a lot of us are living in survival mode. So survival mode says do what's safe. Don't do what's outside the box. So that's going to include our parents telling us stuff like, you know, maybe just finish school or pick up a trade, or that's a good job, you know, or he has a good job. She has a good job or something like that. And them just wanting to know that we're good. But it's like, what if we could be good and it just looks different?
Facts.
You know what I mean? So when it comes to our parents, and both of my parents have been problematic at one point in my life. But again, like you really, 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 at the end of the day, even if you don't have a support system, you have to create that support system and get in the driver's seat and like literally like put headphones on and just go.
Tune out.
You know what I mean? And just create the life that you desire, because it's like, why not? Because I don't know about you, but it's like I don't want a whole other generation coming up just being perplexed or being comfortable. Like I want them to see outstanding shit, and you know, I want that to be a norm to them. You know? Yeah,
we have such a obligation to change the narrative.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes me so passionate about the type of work that I do. I work with the kids, you know what I'm saying? Like I do a lot of youth work, you know what I'm saying? And I'm super passionate about seeing their transformations from day one, and me going in and seeing the stigmas. Okay, I see why y'all calling these kids bad. I see why y'all calling these kids like, you know what I'm saying? I get
bad.
it. Like I get it. Like there's no such thing as a bad kid. I'm gonna make that very clear. There is no such thing as a bad kid. Kids do what they're allowed to do, right? So if you're allowing your kid to throw tantrums, if you're allowing your kid to curse, if you're allowing your kid to act a fool and to tell adults no, like that's not his fault. You're allowing it. So it's a such thing as a bad parent, in my opinion, but it's not a such thing as a bad kid. I've worked with kids all walks of life, and my main initiative is to work with kids in the inner cities, because I personally just feel like that's where my need is most needed at. That's where my gifts are most
I feel like those
at.
are where the gifted ones are.
Absolutely.
Because it's like when you're in the, I mean, depending on what inner city you're from, again, there's that survival mentality, and then there's also a mentality of lack, right? So with lack creates imagination and thus creates creativity.
Got you.
Where it's like you have to get creative with what you have. So that's really where the talent is.
That's deep.
You know what I'm saying? My brother is far smarter than I am.
Come on. And
he was one of those kids who was in special education, who dropped out of high school, who was called the bad kid, who was called you know, all types of things, and said that he wasn't going to be able to do certain things. And he's amazing. He's doing better than anyone in his class. You know what I'm saying? And that's not to downplay anybody else, but those are the ones who are usually going to thrive because they have lack.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
And they hate to see it, but it's facts.
It's a blessing too, I feel, with kids who are raised without a silver spoon in their mouth. For me personally speaking, I feel like me growing up in a space to where my mom's idea of a recreational good time for her and her kids was catching the bus to the beach with a bunch of mayonnaise sandwiches and some Bowlies. I'm not sure if you know what Bowlies are. The little icicle pops you pop in half. Boom. So like I remember
you ain't had a sugar sandwich though.
Come on, I ain't never had no sugar sandwich.
Okay, look.
You know what I did
My
have
thing
though?
is,
I did have a syrup sandwich. We used to have syrup sandwiches. We used to make little syrup sandwiches with the wheat.
Thing.
The same thing.
That's the same thing. I was just having this argument with somebody else. We was talking about. We was like, who was more poor?
Come on.
I'm like,
but look, it was
never had a
normal
sugar
to us,
sandwich.
though.
Yeah.
Like that was normal. Like eating a sugar sandwich or eating going in the kitchen, getting some bread and putting some syrup on it was like normal.
Yeah.
So we didn't even view it as lack as kids.
Right.
Eating a mayonnaise and bologna
I didn't
sandwich
view it as
was
lack
like
until I went to
normal.
other people's houses and I was like, oh.
Oh, y'all niggas eat steaks over here.
I said,
Got you.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Got
So
you.
y'all got more than one flavor of top
Got
ramen.
you. Absolutely. Nigga, we just got chicken.
I
I didn't even know it was a shrimp flavor up in here. You know what I'm saying? It's just pure
I
chicken.
wouldn't take anything back at all because that just it just made me appreciate and just have so much gratitude for the things that I have now and for the things that I dream about. And it's just, you know, I look back and I'm like, that was fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like just
absolutely.
even being able to be in a position to make jokes like that, you know, it's like some people aren't going to get it, but you know, you know what I'm saying?
That part.
So it's like, I appreciate every single thing I've been through.
Take us out with the idea of kind of like how important gratitude is the center of every single message that I have. Every message that I put out to the world, it's rooted with gratitude. Talk to me a little bit about how important is gratitude, what things come out of gratitude, and just kind of like, you know what I'm saying, gratitude. Like what's your experience in just having an attitude of gratitude?
I feel like being in a space of gratitude and just being in the spirit of gratitude, it for me is definitely lifted a weight off my shoulders. It's made me it's reminded me that I'm not in control, that I'm not in the driver's seat all the time, that I have to do the work. But there's definitely forces and a divine force behind what I'm trying to pursue. And then just being grateful is like saying thank you for graduating from one struggle to the next struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like getting out of one struggle is graduation into the next level. So I always, and again, it's like gratitude, attitude of gratitude. It's like buzzwords now, but it really is an element that we should have in our life because it could really take you far. It's brought things into manifestation for me.
Love it. Same here. And so for me, I think, you know, like I told you when we came in here, the idea of this show for me was to bring in the people that I view in my eyes. We ain't talking about followers. We ain't talking about none of the bullshit, none of the outer extras. I'm talking about people I've actually seen with a product, with a message.
Thank you.
Boots on the ground, actually doing the work. And you are by far one of the top people that I see out here that's just doing work. You're extremely inspiring. Obviously, we don't have enough time today to be able to jump into, you know what I'm saying, just the depths of like everything that you're looking to do, everything that you've accomplished, right? So on and so forth. Every single episode, I want to end off with my guest looking at that camera right there, and you leaving our audience with what I call your unselfish message. What is your unselfish message? Obviously, we're on an Unselfish Behavior podcast. What is the ultimate message that you want to get across to people when they look at this podcast? Your unselfish message from the one and only MJ.
I feel like there's so many.
Hit them with something.
My unselfish message for the ether is going to be put God first. God is the ultimate manager, the ultimate co-creator, the ultimate creative director. And if you don't know what to say, just sit in silence and listen with your heart.
And that's it right there, huh? Come on now. Episode 3, Unselfish Behavior. Thank you so much, MJ.
Thank you,
We're gonna make sure that we
very
plug you.
proud of you, by the way.
Thank you.
Very proud of you. This is well overdue, and I'm very happy for you.
By the grace of God. Thank you. Episode 3, man. Unselfish Behavior. We out.